Right, back here with another property finance tip. What's it about this week? SARB, sale and rent back. So if you're thinking about buying a property and letting the vendor continue to live there, i.e. renting it back to them, keep watching because I'm going to tell you why that's illegal to do that. Now, it's a familiar situation. Someone's lived in the house a long time, they love it, they want to stay there, but they need to sell it for a variety of reasons. But so they say to you, hey, we'll sell you the house, just let us stay here and we'll rent it off you and we'll be a good tenant and that type of thing. Now, it sounds perfectly plausible, doesn't it? Why is it illegal? Let me tell you why it is illegal, because the FSA say so. Financial Conduct Authority outlawed, in practical terms, sale and rent back over a decade ago in the early 2010s. And no one has realistically been able to operate this type of transaction for at least a decade. Now, you may be thinking, what caused the FCA to want to get involved in what is a fairly simple transaction? So let's give you a little bit of a history lesson as to why this is. So in the early 2000s, this type of deal was prevalent, and when you could certainly buy and refinance quickly, a lot of property investors at the time were doing these type of deals, and they would find a tenant that, as we said, wanted to sell it but didn't want to move out, and they would buy it, put it on a mortgage, know they got a good tenant. So it makes sense from that point of view, because you've got a tenant that's lived there, 10, 20, maybe 30 years. They're not going to mess up what they consider their home, so they could be an ideal tenant. And in many cases they were. What went wrong? Well, it's one of these cases where the few spoil it for the many. So, and there are still people around now with that situation, landlords and tenants with that situation from 10, 15 years ago. The problem was a small minority of investors, landlords, that took the rent and then didn't pay the mortgage for whatever reason. So what happened? Well, I'm sure you know that if you don't pay the mortgage for months on end, you'll end up getting repossessed. That's what happened. So the new owners of the property, having taken the rent off the old owners, now the tenants, then kept the money. Why? Who knows? No logical reason for that. Didn't pay the mortgage, got repossessed. So the original owner got evicted, even though they'd done nothing wrong. They'd sold their property legitimately, they rented it back legitimately, they paid their rent legitimately, but still they were evicted out of the home that they'd had for 10, 20, 30 years. Now, this happened enough for the FCA to want to get involved. So they set down a level of criteria. In fact, you had to be SARB licensed, sale and rent back licensed. So you had to get a license to be able to operate that contract. And that ran for a year or maybe a bit longer. And then the FCA did some audit visits, and they found that even the few companies that they'd authorised to do it were still not doing it right. So effectively, they de-licensed those, and now no company in the UK has got an active licence from the FCA to run that type of investment. Now, you can apply for it if you want to, but the bar is set so high that you're almost certainly going to fail. Now, you might be asking yourself, why doesn't everyone know this? Well, agents in the main don't understand this. It's not their fault necessarily, because they're there to sell properties, not understand property law. Agents will often promote this as a workable solution, unaware of the fact that actually it's illegal to do it. So if you ever come across this, you've got to actually educate the agent why it's not a viable transaction. Now, if you've got a portfolio of properties, even a small portfolio, what you can do is buy the property, offer to rent one of your properties out to the previous owner of the property you bought, just not that one. So you can put them in another property of yours, and that's fine, no problem at all. So you can actually rent a property back to them, but you can't rent the property back they used to own. In case you're thinking of, well, I will do it, no one will find out, here's a valid reason why you wouldn't want to do that. And the reason is you put yourself in an extremely vulnerable position. And I've read of at least one case where this has happened. Now, the everyone would start out genuine. The tenant would genuinely want to pay you the rent. You genuinely want to pay the mortgage that with the rental income. Now, here's the issue. If the tenant ever finds out that they're part of an illegal transaction, but they're the innocent party in the illegal transaction, it's you, the owner, the landlord, that's the transgressor. They got you over a barrel now. So, and this is what happened. If they decide that they're not going to pay you rent anymore, because why should they? Because you're not going to actually try and evict them or do anything else, because if you do, they'll just squeal, hey, this is a sale and rent back. So they could effectively live there rent free for years if they were smart enough to do that. You'd be pretty dumb to actually want to put yourself in such a vulnerable position. So if you ever get offered a sale and rent back deal, do yourself a favour, don't take it. Find a different solution. I've given you one suggestion, maybe you can think of others. This subject comes up quite a lot. I get asked it fairly regularly. It pops up in Facebook groups from time to time. So I thought it was a good idea to actually do a video so that if you're watching this video, you understand that it's not a viable transaction. Anyway, that's it for this week. Now, hey, have you subscribed? Have you hit that little button and click that little bell down there? If not, please do, because you'll get one of these little videos every week. Before you jump off on the next video, hang about a minute, because I've got something you might be interested in.
If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30, I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.